Welcome to HD Rare Coins, your ultimate source for rare coins, fascinating history, and the thrill of discovery. From legendary pennies to hidden gems, we explore the world of numismatics one amazing coin at a time. In the quiet, disciplined halls of the Philadelphia Mint, where the rhythm of industry meets the precision of craftsmanship, a small silver-colored coin slid from the press with little fanfare. It was 2015, a year marked by innovation, political tension, and the increasing dominance of digital life. Most Americans were too busy with smartphones and social media to pay much attention to the coins that still passed from hand to hand. But amid this modern hustle, one dime would emerge, unnoticed at first, that would become one of the most remarkable finds in recent American numismatic history. This particular dime bore the familiar face of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. For decades, his image had graced the 10-cent piece, a tribute to his legacy and his ties to the March of Dimes, which fought to end polio. By 2015, the design was so deeply woven into American currency that most people didn't even glance at it. But every coin tells a story, and sometimes, the story is waiting for someone patient enough to listen. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by a subtle P mark to the left of the torch on the reverse, had produced hundreds of millions of dimes that year. It was routine work, automated, high volume, highly efficient. But even in a world dominated by machines, perfection remains elusive, and uniqueness, true, rare uniqueness, is nearly impossible to engineer. And yet, that's exactly what happened. Somewhere between the delivery of the planchets and the mechanical strike of the dies, a singular dime was produced with an unmatched level of clarity, detail, and preservation. The surfaces were flawless. The relief was full and bold. Every curve of Roosevelt's face, every serif of the inscriptions, and every grain of texture on the reverse torch and branches stood out with such stark beauty that it seemed as though the coin had never touched another object since its creation. It wasn't immediately discovered. Like so many treasures, it first passed through the world unnoticed. The coin, packaged within a 2015 mint set, was bought by a young collector in Pennsylvania at a coin show. He was more curious than serious, still learning the difference between strike and wear, between luster and toning. But something about that dime caught his eye. He couldn't say why at first. It just felt different. He slipped it into a 2x2 flip and put it aside. Weeks passed, then months, and the dime sat quietly in a drawer. It wasn't until the collector's father, a retired coin dealer, decided to inspect his son's collection more closely that the coin's potential began to shine. Under a magnifier, the dime revealed itself. It had no blemishes. No contact marks. The strike was needle-sharp. The fields were gleaming, and the devices were etched with photographic crispness. What they held in their hands wasn't just a well-preserved modern coin. It was something extraordinary. They submitted the coin to a top grading service. The wait for the results was nerve-wracking. Most 2015 P dimes graded no higher than MS66 or MS67. A few lucky pieces reached MS68. But this one came back with the rarest designation possible, MS70 full bands. It was a declaration of perfection. Full bands meant the horizontal lines across the torch on the reverse were completely struck, a mark of supreme quality. MS70 meant the coin was flawless even under 5x magnification. In the world of modern coins, such a result was nearly unheard of. Soon, the whispers began to spread in online coin forums and dealer circles. A 2015 P dime had achieved MS70 FB. For collectors of Roosevelt dimes, it was a seismic event. The news traveled fast, and the offers came in. $5,000. Then 10. Then 20. But the family hesitated. They knew the coin's worth would grow, and more importantly, they knew it was a piece of numismatic history. The dime was shown at a major national coin show the following spring. Displayed beneath thick glass, illuminated with carefully angled lights, the coin drew steady crowds. Collectors leaned in to examine it, many doubting such a grade could even exist for a circulation-era modern dime. But there it was. Untouched. Gleaming. Perfect. People took photos. Others asked for provenance. Whispers echoed through the showroom floor, was this the only one? Could another dime possibly match it? The coin, though just a 10-cent piece in name, had become something else entirely, a relic, a miracle of minting, and a symbol of rarity in an age of mass production. News of the coin's display reached numismatic journals, and within weeks, articles were published celebrating this modern marvel. A modern-day perfect dime, one cover declared, with a high-resolution image of the coin glinting beside Roosevelt's dignified profile. Experts weighed in. Some suggested it was the product of a freshly prepared die pair. Others theorized that it was struck during the mint's peak quality control period for that year. But even those explanations fell short of fully accounting for the coin's immaculate preservation. The coin, while held in reverence by the public, began to ignite discussion within a more niche, competitive world, that of registry set collectors. In these sets, where collectors strive to assemble the highest graded examples of every coin in a series, a single MS-70 full bands dime from 2015 could tilt the scales dramatically. For the collector who held it, it meant their Roosevelt dime set was no longer just elite, it was unbeatable. Auction houses began reaching out again. Not with 5-figure offers, but with promises of 6. Still, the family waited. They weren't chasing a sale. They were savoring the journey, one that started in a casual coin show and had now blossomed into numismatic legend. Eventually, after careful thought and many late-night conversations, they agreed to consign the coin to one of the top auction houses in the United States. The buzz leading up to the auction was electric. Collectors speculated wildly online. Some predicted it would break all records for a modern Roosevelt dime. Others doubted the enthusiasm would translate into serious bids. But as the evening arrived, with hundreds tuning in online and seated in the auction gallery, the atmosphere was one of awe. The bidding began modestly, $25,000. Then a hand rose for $30,000. A phone bidder raised it to $35,000. Within minutes, it had soared past $60,000. Two collectors were locked in a determined standoff, each unwilling to let this unmatched dime slip away. The auctioneer's voice quickened, the room leaned in. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid stunned the crowd. $143,000. The 10-cent coin, minted in 2015, pulled from a mint set by a teenager, had just become one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever sold. The final price reflected not just the rarity of the grade, but the emotional magnetism of the story, the timing, the condition, and the mystique that in the weeks that followed, the coin's fame only grew. It was written about in mainstream news outlets. It became the subject of YouTube videos, blog posts, and even coin podcast episodes. For collectors, it reaffirmed the magic that lies in even the most modern coins. For casual hobbyists, it served as a reminder to check their change, to preserve their mint sets, and to stay curious. But the story didn't end with the sale. The coin was now part of a private collection, its exact location undisclosed. Some believed it belonged to a wealthy collector in the Midwest. Others speculated that a prominent registry set enthusiast had secured it to perfect their Roosevelt series. Wherever it rested, the coin's legacy was cemented. Children in coin clubs across the country heard about it from mentors who now told its story with pride. "You never know what you'll find," they would say, holding up a modern dime and letting the light bounce off its edge. That's what makes collecting beautiful. Even the mint took notice. While they never publicly commented on the individual coin, whispers from within suggested a renewed interest in quality control and a deepened appreciation for the unexpected outcomes of their craft. Behind the scenes, engravers and press operators discussed it quietly, how one flawless dime had reminded the world that artistry and precision still mattered in their work. The Roosevelt dime series, once overlooked by many collectors in favor of older silver coins or more dramatic designs, now experienced a renaissance. Interest surged. Prices rose. And collectors began revisiting their 2015 sets with newfound hope. Some began flipping through their mint sets with renewed purpose, carefully inspecting each 2015 dime for any sign of similar perfection. Online coin forums lit up with questions. What were the markers of MS-70? Could lightning strike twice? Was there another dime out there, hiding in a dusty desk drawer or sealed inside an untouched envelope from the mint? Every collector became a hopeful treasure hunter, united by the slim but thrilling possibility that they too could uncover the next great find. Coin dealers across the country noticed the trend. Requests for 2015 mint sets spiked. Shows and conventions reported higher than usual foot traffic at booths specializing in modern U.S. coins. Demand for high-grade Roosevelt dimes suddenly intensified, and prices on anything MS-68 and above crept upward. It wasn't just about this one coin anymore, it was about what it represented, the perfect storm of rarity, preservation, timing, and luck, and beneath it all, the design of the dime itself received renewed appreciation. Roosevelt's profile, so often taken for granted, became the subject of detailed analysis. Collectors admired the fine curvature of his jawline, the sharp engraving of Liberty, the delicate detail in his eye. The reverse, often overlooked, came to life with scrutiny. In the spring of 1997, while the world buzzed with news of new technology, soaring stock markets, and the turn of a new millennium approaching fast, something quiet and unremarkable happened at the Denver Mint, something that would only gain meaning years later. Amidst the mechanical hum of coin presses and conveyor belts, a small, silver-colored dime rolled off the production line. To the workers on the floor, it was just one of millions. To the average American, it would soon become pocket change, destined to vanish into the routine shuffle of daily life. But to the right set of eyes, in the right moment, that dime would be nothing short of a national treasure. The 1997 D. Roosevelt dime was born into an age where coins were more functional than cherished. Credit cards and early forms of digital payment were already gaining ground, and fewer people paid close attention to the coins that jingled in their pockets. Still, the U.S. Mint remained committed to tradition. Coins were struck by the millions, billions, even, and circulated without ceremony. Among those, the dime stood as one of the most commonly used and yet least celebrated denominations. But within the uniform masses, anomalies and outliers sometimes emerged, and occasionally, perfection itself. The Denver Mint, marked by the small d beneath Franklin D. Roosevelt's neck on the obverse of the coin, had a long history of precision and quality. Yet no minting process is entirely free of variation. Most dimes left with tiny marks, imperfections from contact with other coins, or slight errors from die wear. It's simply the nature of mass production. But this one dime, this 1997 D. Roosevelt, escaped all that. It emerged flawless, untouched, with shimmering luster and a full, sharp strike that captured every nuance of its design. It was, as some would later say, a coin that had no business being so perfect. The coin featured the enduring image of President Roosevelt, a tribute not just to the man who led the country through economic despair and global war, but also to the leader who inspired the March of Dimes, an organization that sought to combat polio and later other childhood diseases. The design, created by John R. Sinek, had changed very little since its debut in 1946. The simplicity of Roosevelt's profile, the clean arcs of the lettering, and the clarity of the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse all spoke to a post-war America eager for symbols of unity, peace, and strength. In 1997, however, that symbolism was lost on most. People no longer looked to their dimes for inspiration. They looked through them to find change for coffee, bus fare, or parking meters. And yet, through sheer chance or hidden fate, one coin was spared the usual wear and tear of circulation. It found itself in a government-issued mint set, never touched by human hands, never dropped or scuffed. For years, it sat in a protective case, ignored, protected, waiting. When that coin finally emerged into the hands of a collector, it did so quietly. There was no fanfare, no grand reveal, just a curious glance, a raised eyebrow, and the unmistakable instinct of someone who knew they were holding something extraordinary. The collector, a former postal worker from Colorado, had purchased the mint set from a flea market, not expecting much more than nostalgia. But as he examined the dime under magnification, his breath caught. The surfaces were immaculate. The devices, Roosevelt's face, the torch and branches, were struck with stunning clarity. The fields were like mirrors, Unmarred and untouched, professional grading followed, and confirmation soon arrived. The dime had achieved the impossible, a perfect mint state 70. It was a grade so rarely awarded to circulation coins that even seasoned experts doubted it at first. But every test, every angle, every evaluation confirmed it. The 1997 D. Roosevelt dime was a miracle of minting. Word began to spread quietly at first, a murmur among regional coin dealers and niche collectors. Whispers of a flawless 1997 D. Roosevelt dime began to echo through online forums and numismatic newsletters. In a community that prided itself on rarity, the emergence of a modern coin in pristine mint state 70 stirred disbelief and curiosity alike. After all, how could something so common, so recent, now command such reverence? It didn't take long before the whispers turned into conversation. Collectors across the country began revisiting their mint sets from 1997, pulling out the dimes and holding them up to the light, hoping they too might catch that same glint of perfection. But none measured up. Not even close. The surface of the others bore micro scratches, slight dings along the rim, faint weaknesses in the strike. Good coins, certainly. But not this coin. The Denver miracle remained alone, an untouched ambassador from a year nearly forgotten. For the man who found it, the experience quickly transformed from quiet hobby to sudden fame. Coin publications interviewed him. Local news outlets ran stories of the lucky flea market find. Invitations came from coin conventions, and he was asked to display the coin under glass like a rare gemstone. And indeed, to those who understood its significance, that's exactly what it was. The coin's physical beauty was undeniable, but it was the story behind it that truly elevated its worth. It was a reminder that even in the most automated systems, among the most routine and repetitive of processes, there can exist a moment of extraordinary craftsmanship. Whether by chance or an unnamed mint worker's meticulous eye, this dime had become a time capsule of precision. Soon, attention turned to the coin's value. It first entered the private market quietly, discussed only among serious collectors and dealers with deep pockets. The whispers continued, 5 figures, some said. Others speculated 6. And then, when the coin finally appeared at a high-profile auction, speculation turned to awe. The bidding opened high and climbed quickly. Seasoned bidders who had built their careers on 19th-century rarities found themselves chasing a coin from the not-so-distant past. The final hammer fell at $133,000. That number shocked many, but for those who had followed the coin's journey, it made sense. In a hobby where rarity is often measured in centuries and mintages, this dime proved that condition alone could be just as powerful a driver of value. Billions of dimes were struck in 1997, but only one had survived in such condition. It wasn't just about being rare, it was about being unique. After the sale, the coin passed into the hands of a private collector who had spent decades assembling one of the finest modern coin collections in the world. It joined a vault already housing perfect examples of other Roosevelt dimes, Lincoln cents, and Jefferson nickels. But even among those, the 1997 D dime held a special place. It was displayed in its own case, under its own spotlight, accompanied by documentation and photographs of its journey. Visitors to the collector's home, whether fellow hobbyists or family, were always told the story of the flea market discovery, the perfection found in the ordinary, and the unbelievable journey of the 10-cent coin that became a 6-figure icon. As the years passed, the legend of the dime grew. Its story was shared in classrooms and coin clubs, retold in magazine articles and YouTube videos. It inspired a new generation of collectors to look closer, to take a second glance at the coins in their pockets and drawers. What might seem mundane to most could, under the right circumstances, be a life-changing discovery. Collectors young and old began scouring their change jars with renewed excitement. Coin shops across the country saw a rise in visitors, many asking to view their 1997 D dimes under a loupe or in better lighting. Stories emerged of grandparents gifting mint sets to their grandchildren, just in case another miracle lay hidden within the folds of history. The magic of discovery, long thought reserved for ancient relics or obscure 19th-century issues, had suddenly returned, courtesy of a dime less than 3 decades old. The media, always eager for a story blending nostalgia and surprise, caught on. Headlines emerged: the 10-cent coin worth over $100,000, flea market find becomes national treasure, and how a modern dime shocked the coin world. Morning shows featured segments about valuable change, bringing numismatics to a broader audience than it had seen in years. Even those unfamiliar with terms like MS-70 or strike sharpness were now tuned in, curious if their loose change could hold a secret of its own. But beyond the hype, the story of the 1997 D-dime resonated for deeper reasons. It reminded people of the value of preservation. It reminded them that even the most overlooked objects might hold significance if cared for properly. And it proved something else, too, something vital, that in a world growing increasingly digital and fast-paced, the tactile presence of a coin could still carry wonder. Auction houses received inquiries from collectors around the globe asking if any other 1997 D-dimes approached similar quality. But none were found. Not in dealer vaults. Not in government-issued sets. Not even in the collections of the most seasoned specialists. While some examples did reach high grades like MS-68 or even MS-69, they always fell just short of perfection. The original discovery remained unrivaled, a singular masterpiece. Grading services, too, felt the impact. Submissions of 1997 D-dimes increased, as hopeful collectors submitted coins in droves, many certain they had found the one. But no additional MS-70s emerged. The perfect storm of conditions that created the original gem, flawless planchet, pristine die state, perfect pressure, immediate protection, had not repeated itself.